So this video is going to be a little different because I had the thought last night. Somebody commented on one of my videos from a couple months ago, actually asking, is MetaZoo back? And my first initial response, it wasn't, yeah, it's back, because that's been like a big question that I've seen everywhere, and it's part of the same verbiage that I've used. I've actually even said MetaZoo is back on some of my posts and stuff like that, and there's other stuff actually with that. But for some reason, like I was saying, my first initial reaction when I saw that comment wasn't, yes, 100% back. It was, I wouldn't say back, more like reborn. And it gave me the idea for this video. Because at the end of the day, and I'm just gonna say it, at the end of the day, Retro Zoo is not New Zoo, and New Zoo is not Retro Zoo. And there's no way of actually trying to like sugarcoat that or try to spin it to be like, it's MetaZoo. It is different, and it is different in a lot of ways. But when you break down what MetaZoo is, I feel like it's very similar. Now, I'm basing this all off of my perspective, so I know there's going to be plenty of other people who disagree with me, other things like that. Definitely, I will have those conversations with them in the comments. Like, please, let's talk. But it was the thing that got me actually interested in MetaZoo, that actually put it on the map for me, is a friend of mine, Jacob Chambers. He offered to let me buy some Cryptid Nation right after the Kickstarter came out. He offered to let me buy like a booster box and a spell book, and I got it and forgot about it. And then August of that year, that's when I received the product. And by that point, MetaZoo had started to explode. And I started buying individual packs on Facebook live streams and stuff like that, because a lot of the streaming stuff wasn't what it is today with Whatnot and Drip and stuff. But I used to buy on Facebook live streams, and that's pretty much how I completed most of Cryptid Nation, Nightfall, and Wilderness was the first real set that I was able to access myself. So I've enjoyed this game, this universe for years now. But it wasn't the gameplay that honestly got me interested. It was the cards themselves. It was the artwork. It was the nostalgia feeling of old school Pokemon. Like, to be completely blunt, that's what caught my eye on it. And it wasn't until probably about, maybe I want to say after Wilderness, it was around March, April of, I believe, 22 is when I actually made my first video talking about the lore, because like I couldn't find a lot of content on YouTube. And then that's kind of like how that whole thing snowballed to where pretty much I was the lore keeper. I was the one trying to keep track of everything that happened, everything that existed inside of the universe of MetaZoo. And I worked with Mike a little bit on a cryptid map that had travel lines showing where everybody went on the story. I talked a lot with Mike about the story and the characters and stuff like that. I was never fully told anything that concrete. Like, I never once saw an actual like list of like, this is what happens. I never actually saw the Bible, if you would, per se. But I knew enough to where that's why I never actually did my timeline video of Cryptid Nation, because by that point, I kind of had an idea of exactly what was going to take place on that timeline. You're probably asking yourself, what does this have to do with anything? I wanted to go that far in depth because that is how much I am and was invested in the old storyline, in the old universe. The creation of Mike Waddell, of what MetaZoo was. Look at the stuff with casters and cryptids and everything like that. I was heavily invested in it. And then the bankruptcy happened. Everything fell apart. And this new company formed, MetaZoo, in partnership, I guess, with GQL, and they took on it. And that entire universe that existed with Sam and all of them is not in the new MetaZoo universe. Like, I'm still convinced that the guy that's in the comics of how to be a caster, I'm pretty convinced that's actually Sam Sinclair. That looks just like him. But it doesn't have to be Retro Zoo's Sam Sinclair. And the reason why I'm talking about all of this is that, like, I am okay with this new universe that they're actually making. And you're like, oh, who cares? The investment that I had in the old universe actually succeeding. I guess the reason I'm going so far in depth on my love of old MetaZoo lore is I like what they're doing with the new stuff. I like that the stories themselves are separate. They're cultivating a world. They're actually creating these things. I love the copy mechanic. I think the copy and the gate key, I love that concept. And me liking that stuff and being excited for that stuff doesn't take anything away from Sam and his story. It's just, this is what new MetaZoo is about. And to be completely honest, there were some. I will say this: there were some. We had a good small community of people who really liked the story and the lore, and I every single one of you I appreciate. And to be honest with you, I don't think MetaZoo's going to do anything with the story, and so I'm actually putting something together to draw that to a conclusion. So there is some sort of a conclusion, but the thing is, though, is that it has to complement new Zoo. Honestly, at the end of the day, for old MetaZoo to stay relevant, new MetaZoo has to succeed. Like, if new MetaZoo doesn't succeed, then no one's gonna care. No one's gonna care about it. And both stories, both universes, the old universe of MetaZoo of Mike Waddell and the new universe that's being cultivated by M2 can coexist, and they can both be awesome. And we don't have to, like, I feel like there's so many people who are just still hating on it because it's not the old cards. And, like, I don't know if anybody's actually has said this, but there's no way they could have continued the old stuff with inaccurate print counts. There's no way you can build a foundation for a new company without knowing what the assets in the wild and such are, how many were even printed, not even how many are in the wild, but just how many were even printed. Like, you can't do that. And on top of it too, the gameplay worked, but looking at some of the cards moving forward, and, like, especially with the idea there was never going to be a ban list, gameplay was going to become extremely complicated, more complicated than it already was. And talking about gameplay real quick, I'll segue over to MetaZoo. I can play this game with my kids. I taught my oldest how to play old MetaZoo with some of the theme decks, and he was like, eh. I used the alpha decks. The first time I came back from Miami, I used the alpha decks, and I actually played it with my oldest, and he actually asked me to play with him. Like, I never, like, my kids, they loved opening boxes with me. They loved, like, spending times, shiny packs and stuff like that, but there was no investment in the game or in the cards or anything. And that's different with this time. And that's not even counting the countless numbers of families and kids and stuff I've seen at the conventions, spinning the wheel, meeting the artists, going to the learn to plays. Like, and it's not just like teaching a dad and their child the game. Like, you'll have a mom or like another sibling watching while they're playing, so you're actually teaching multiple people, and it's not just one-on-one. So, like, there are tons of people that are actually playing these games at the conventions. And on top of that too, with the rollout this coming week of organized play, that's literally the big thing that we're missing right now, is some sort of organized play system. I mean, you wouldn't have people asking where they could play. You wouldn't have people asking for a digital client if they weren't interested in it. But we still have to come back to that idea that it isn't old Zoo. Like, I doubt you're ever going to find a $50,000 like tournament cash prize like you had with old MetaZoo. Because at the end of the day, and like, whatever, I don't care if you agree with me, they were buying players. Like, you look at some of the other like games, there's nowhere near that amount of money that's actually like being given out. And like, they were buying players. Like, I enjoyed old MetaZoo gameplay too. Like, one of my favorite matches was at Water Tower, and competing in Dark Tower was like phenomenal. Like, I just loved the way the mechanics of the Wendigo deck engine worked. It was so much fun to play. But me enjoying new MetaZoo doesn't take away from that. Like, there's still, I have a couple buddies where, like, when we can get together, we'll play Retro Zoo. Like, if you really love the old gameplay, I have tons of cards. Hit me up. If I can send them to you, if you pay shipping, we'll figure something out. If you enjoy the old game, play it. Start a group at an LGS. Like, that's what I'm having to do actually with my current one right now, is actually to get new gameplay, like the new MetaZoo players in. I'm having to try to start like a small little LGS meetup here. And the thing is that we have to do that, especially without organized play being put in place. But even with that, we're still going to have to be the liaisons that go to the LGSs to actually put out the want to the owner, being like, hey, we want this. We have to talk to our friends in order to get our friends interested in it. Like, I would love to actually see more gameplay videos on YouTube and more content about gameplay and stuff. Like, shout out to the Casters Cup group, because they've actually been sponsoring the last couple tournaments at the Collecticons, and on top of that, they're putting out info like deck builds and stuff like that. They have a cool Discord. I'll leave a link in the description. But like, we need more content. If like that's what people want to see, then be a part of it. Make that content. I want to go back to where the mentality we had in 2023, or at least the mentality I had in 2023, where it's like, lift everybody up. Because even to the people who are the biggest haters right now on MetaZoo, to the people who are in love with it, each of us have a voice, each of us have a platform, and right now we literally need to lift this community up. If we want this to survive, if we want old MetaZoo or new MetaZoo to survive, we have to lift each other up. And if you want to hate on me for saying that, that's fine. It speaks to your character. But we need to realize this is not Mike Waddell's MetaZoo. And I still think that that's something that, especially some of the older community, can't break away from. And it's fine. But at the end of the day, all you're going to do is just bring down both ships. And just remember, back in Retro Zoo days, we had a lot. We were promised a lot, but it was so little. Like, we were only given 5 chapters of a story. We were told there was no storyline throughout the cards. We were promised like collaborations and streamer kits and promo packs and all sorts of stuff. And a solid 80% of it never came into fruition. The Chippy Babe promos, for example, from CryptidCon in 2022, you had to take a picture in front of the inflatable, send them in. I got mine literally November, October of 2023, because someone reminded Andy that they were just chilling on his desk and they had been there for months. Like, that's the type of stuff that happened with Old Zoo. And one of the biggest tenets, one of the biggest things Charlie has actually preached almost any time he's been in the Discord, is that when they say they're going to do something, they want to do it. They don't ever want to promise something and never deliver, because that's all we got with Retro Zoo. And granted, they've only been around for 4 months or so with actual products, I would say, going out, maybe 3 months with products going out, distribution and everything like that. But they've delivered. They've actually have never promised us something that we didn't get. And we have to separate the two. We have to respect old MetaZoo for what it was, but we have to actually prop up new MetaZoo for being the foundation to allow this thing to become the behemoth that we all want it to be. As much as we had so little. We were promised so much with Old Zoo, and it had so much potential. But it was never going to make it. Not with the way they ran the company, not with the way things turned out. But when I look at Meta2, when I look at the people involved from GQL, when I look at the people who are backing this, the people who have volunteered their time to come to conventions, the people who pay to go to the conventions and volunteer their time to learn about this new universe, this new game, because it is a new game. it gives me so much hope for the future, because again, I can see that foundation being laid on something that actually is concrete, something that actually is a strong foundation to allow this to do everything that we ever thought it could do before with MetaZoo. And I said at the beginning that I knew that the two were separate, but the new one embodied, I feel, a lot of what old Zoo was. Because at the end of the day, really, the only thing that mattered when it came to MetaZoo, to us, to the community, was the art and the community itself. And I personally appreciate MetaZoo using some of the old art, because they didn't have to, and it probably would have been smarter for them not to, because they're trying to, again, separate themselves away from Mike Waddell MetaZoo, because they are different. So I love the fact that they use some of the old art, but they didn't have to. And it's different mediums, yes, but a lot of the art still holds that special place like the old stuff did. For like, and I'm talking about like the older artists that came over, like Jet Yates and Poncho and Sebastian, like Kelsey, that you can still see old MetaZoo in them. And even some of, like, in my opinion, some of the new artists have actually absolutely killed their art. It's been amazing actually watching some of these new artists, and some of it, you're 100% correct, is nothing like what ever looked like MetaZoo before. And I know people are up in arms because everybody thinks everything's digital AI and stuff like that nowadays, and that's just something that people have to personally come to terms with themselves. But at the end of the day, I was never upset about the art mediums, because the last thing the old administration did was the art fan contest, where they literally encouraged people to use as many different mediums as they could. So we were already being prepped for that. The other big thing I feel that makes MetaZoo is the community. It's us. It's all of us coming together, talking about this game, talking about this universe, the creatures themselves, our personal story on certain cryptids, of why they mean so much to us, and our local legends and other stuff like that. I love the fact that this is more of a worldview versus North America based. And it incorporates so many more people than just what we're used to with old MetaZoo, because the majority of that community, the vast majority, was American. There was a small presence in Europe and Australia. Those were the three big ones. And yes, you could count Canada as well too. Canada had like a couple big prominent members, stuff like that, like Alan, who kept track of the secret rares and such. But they never really had a way of ramping up to a more worldwide audience. And MetaZoo does. Like, they already have distributors in place in all of those different countries. And I know that some stuff was with base set and some got over here and then some came here and this came here, but I know that they're actively trying to make sure that water is delivered worldwide the same day. And if they can pull that off, that's going to be huge, because that's something that MetaZoo, Mike Waddell and them never did. It was always a solid 2 to 3 weeks before Australia got stuff. And so, like, there are amazing things happening that people might not be really paying attention to, but they're good things that literally, like I've preached for years, are going to bring longevity to the franchise. Investment in the characters, investment in the cards, in the gameplay. If the game is easy to pick up, but it's still complex, that's what you're aiming for. And the last couple tournaments that we've had before the Collecticons, I've played in them, and I'm really starting to see some of the complexity in the game. The last game that I played with the Flex deck was almost like playing chess with cards. It was a blast. So we're not at the complexity that old MetaZoo was at, but that's only because we've had one set. We only have 4 of 8 auras. Now, a year from now, a year and a half from now, when all 8 auras are introduced, or like, well, the remaining 4, and we have everything like that, and sets are coming out, and it's literally just all of them, instead of introducing a new one, then we can actually talk about, is this complex enough or not? Because trust me, right now, it gets up there after a while. And again, I'll go back to, I'm excited to be able to play with my son. I'm excited to be able to teach him and him teach his friends. Like, this is a game that is really enjoyable if you give it a chance, if you give it a shot. And again, I'm not trying to talk anything bad about old MetaZoo gameplay, because it was fun. I had a blast with it. But I'm not upset that it changed. And who knows, we might get Fourth Wall eventually back. But to be completely blunt, 98% of the times that I played the game, Fourth Wall was never activated. The only times I ever played really with Fourth Wall activated was at the towers. So I loved it. The stories are amazing. People wearing red dresses, everybody having little plants. It's amazing memories. But this game doesn't have to be the same as what it was. And with the way that it's balanced, and again, I go back to it, I'm going to preach it till I die, as easy as it is to learn this game, there is complexity to it. And I've repeated myself multiple times with that, but you got to start playing it, start putting some decks together, start watching some content of people actually playing against each other. If you actually make content and you are doing deck play content and stuff like that, leave a comment down below. Shout out yourself, please. If you're a MetaZoo content creator, shout yourself out down below. Like, we need to get back to the idea of lifting everybody up, and we have to come to the consensus that old zoo is not new zoo, and new zoo is not old zoo, and that's okay. And they'll never be each other. But at the end of it, new zoo needed MetaZoo in order to actually have the reach that it has, the name recognition that it has. Whereas old MetaZoo needs new MetaZoo because it wasn't sustainable, and it's the only way for it to actually become this legend that it always was destined to be. The Retro Zoo stuff will always be special. And I have not sold a single card at all. I've actually still been picking up cards. Like I just bought this actually from a buddy. So like, I'm still buying old retro cards. My love for retro MetaZoo, for old MetaZoo, has not diminished at all. I guess I feel more confident with it because like, I was always story focused, universe building focused, things like that. And regardless of what happens, I want to actually finish that Cryptic Nation story, at least up to the end of Cryptic Nation. And I know how to tie it in with the new stuff. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is, here in the next week or so, 2 weeks, I'm going to actually, I'll record the first chapter, because I've actually been writing it for the last couple months. I'll record the first chapter and let you guys actually see if it's something that you would want me to finish, if it's something that you guys would listen to, because it's going to be completely just me doing it. But at the end of the day, everything we do, whether it is old story, old product, old memories that we have to complement new MetaZoo, because it doesn't have to be one way or the other. And if it's not your jam and you just want to collect the old stuff, then that's fine. No one's gonna speak ill of you. But we're the stewards of this new community. We are the ones that, when people come and they start looking up MetaZoo, especially like the families and the kids and stuff, they're gonna see us. That's where we are right now, content creation wide, across the board. And with the presence that MetaZoo has on social media, we are the ones that they're actually going to see. And I'm excited for the future. I'm excited to actually watch my kids, especially my oldest. I'm excited to watch my kids fall in love with this game, and the stories and stuff, the individual stories. Like, they'll connect. we just have to have patience. And especially when it comes to lore and story, we're so used to being disappointed that we become impatient almost. And I feel like this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. And I don't know a lot of stuff. Like, I don't really know the full, like, I don't know the storyline of Abraham, the individual stories that come out and stuff like that. I see them for the first time the same time that you guys do. So I don't know, have an insider detail or inside knowledge or anything like that. The only thing I know is that I want to finish the Cryptid Nation story, so I'm going to do that. And then in the future, if I could ever help flesh out this new universe, that's my overall goal. At the end of the day, I just really feel like we are in a crossroads to see the future of this game, the future of this franchise, because we are the first impressions of a lot of people. And you might not think that your voice is heard, but it is. There are people seeing everything that's being put out right now. And it's starting to remind me of old MetaZoo content, of creators going after creators, creating drama for drama, and not focusing on the game, the community, the story, or anything. And I'm not going to name creators from back in the day, but there were some that were literal trolls. And I'm starting to kind of, like, you guys, especially the old school guys that actually were here from the beginning, you remember how many times people said stuff about us because we were fans of MetaZoo. How many times we had to defend ourselves because people were like, oh, MetaZoo's stupid, or this is never going to do anything. That's just dumb. Why would you want to do this? And it was the love of the cards. It was the love of the community that kept us together. So we're not used to, or I don't want to say that we're used to that. And it breaks my heart because a good number of content creators are turning into that exact thing that we defended ourselves against. Like, it reminds me of the Obi-Wan line, "You were the chosen one." Like, it just, and I understand, if, again, like, if new MetaZoo isn't your thing, okay, that's cool, but find out what is. Make content that's going to actually, I hate saying this, spark joy. Because at the end of the day, like I said, a lot of first impressions are what the content is right now. And we haven't, like I said, I don't feel like we've come to terms where it's like we have old zoo and new zoo, and we have to come to new zoo. We're still torn between the two. And they can complement each other, but you can't, excuse my language, because I don't try to curse on the channel, you can't shit on either of them. You can't just pile on just to pile on. We had this conversation months ago, and I feel like we're still at that crossroads where we can't separate the two. And they should be separated. Because, like I said at the beginning of it, I don't feel like MetaZoo is back. Mike Waddell's MetaZoo is not back. MetaZoo is reborn into the community that we actually have now, into the gameplay that we actually have, the universe that is actually being built. It was reborn. And it's important for us to actually know that and to come to terms with that. And I don't think a lot of us have. I think a lot of us have tried to keep RetroZoo as this idea of this is what it should be, when Meta 2, new MetaZoo, is doing things and it's doing it beautifully. It doesn't need that. That's not sustainable. What's going on now is. I love you guys, each and every one of you, even if we don't agree on things. And like I said, we need to lift all of us up. And we always need to keep in mind that we are the first things this new community is going to see.